breakfast call dialogue, widening your horizons.
Hi, this is Arlene.
And this is Grace.
And we are back again with our ABC dialogue. And together with me and Grace, we have another two more guests. He is, I'm not sure to call him an environmentalist or community organizer, but he is now powering the Power Shift Malaysia, moving it forward. And also we have another person focusing on green building, and he's a consultant on it. Welcome, Adrian Yeo and Gene-Harn.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Yeah. Nice to be here.
Hi, Gene-Harn, you have to be closer to the mic.
All right.
People need to hear your sexy voice.
All right. Yeah.
So today we are going to talk about climate march, or in Malaysia they call it the climate picnic. And apparently this weekend will be the largest climate march in history. What is it all about?
Well, the People's Climate March, it's a response to the Ban Ki-moon's climate summit that he personally organized the following week, which is on the 23rd of September.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a privately organized emergency with the urgency of getting the heads of states of 122 countries, including our Prime Minister Najib and also President Obama, will be there in New York City on the 23rd.
Oh, they have the
September.
president to support them.
This is a conference of the head of states of many countries going into New York this 23rd. Yeah. So the 23rd they are starting the summit. So the weekend before the 21st, the civil society has planned up a People's Climate March, where we take to the streets, we go to show our power and to build power, how we're gonna change the story, change the discussion, change the climate story that we can have a better survival.
What was the previous climate discussion or the perspective on climate people have in the past?
Climate? Past?
I mean, like when people talk about climate change
Yep.
or environmental issues and all that, what were the perception or the discussion or the discourse in the past compared to now? Has it matured to a certain extent, or has it been revolving around certain issues, or people have started to look at the bigger picture in terms of the ecological connection between the impact of climate change and also how companies and development have impacted it?
Well, discussion of climate change is very, very still up in the air, still up discussion. There are still parties who say it is natural. The earth is having a sneeze. Things are changing naturally.
But we do.
Some will say
we did face a couple of ice ages period in the past, like millions years ago.
The other school of thought would be the sun rays, microwave coming from the sun. It is crashing to the earth. That's why we're having this increase of temperature. But 98% of the scientists worldwide have shown that this is, in fact, the effect of a man-made climate change. How industrialization, releasing of carbon dioxide and methane in the atmosphere is causing all this climate catastrophe that we are seeing today. Most of the typhoons or mega natural events that happened in the last 10 years was predicted to happen after 2020 to 2050. But things are happening right here, right now. Like, for example, in Malaysia, we have this recent drought of dry season. This is well predicted in our National Communications Part 2 that this drought will come in post 2020. But we are experiencing it now this year in 2014. So we are 6 years ahead of that prediction. And so does all these mega typhoons in Philippines, all this drought and hot season in Russia. Well, not just global warming, we are also seeing snow in US, parts
Global
of US.
freezing.
Not global freezing.
Global
but,
cooling?
but we have seen snow last week in US, northern US. In September, come on, this has never happened before. So this is not just wrecking, causing the Earth to be more warmer, but it's wrecking the whole climate system that is not going to be in balance and
Would
going to
that
cause
be
a lot of
natural to have all this climate change happening or at a different period of time that is not supposed to happen?
Well, scientists have also tells us that yes, we have gone through ice age and warm cycles on the Earth, but this is extremes. We have not seen the level as we have seen it today ever since historical scientific records have recorded. Yeah. Let's talk about carbon dioxide in concentration in the atmosphere. Today we are recording about 402 parts per million of carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere. This is far greater than we have ever seen in history. The scientists have drilled into the Arctic centers, the North Pole and South Pole, and dig up the ice cores, and they measure the carbon dioxide in many millennia away. And carbon dioxide level have not exceeded 350 parts per million in the atmosphere. And today we are recording about 402. So this is very alarming.
And Gene-Harn,
Yep.
you are a green building consultant,
Yes.
but you're also the organizer for this upcoming climate picnic.
Yes, the upcoming climate picnic.
What is it all about? Is it just food and drinks, or is it more than that?
Yeah, we come to eat together. All right. This. I mean, in conjunction, like what Adrian just said again, September 21st is like the D-Day. In New York, in Jakarta, thousands of people will be marching.
So in Southeast Asia, Indonesia will be the center for this climate march.
Yeah, but on the other hand, for the good part of Malaysia itself, we as I would say responsible citizen for this planet, I would say, and we will do something. We plan to do something, which is this climate picnic. Basically, it's just it's a gathering of people who are concerned of the planet, people who think that action needs to be taken rather than just really just talking about on policies level. But more again, we want to encourage some sort of activism among youth. We want people to come and suggest and tell their story. What is a climate-friendly Malaysia?
In the US, they have Barack Obama to talk about this. Did you invite Najib as well, Prime Minister Najib, to participate in the climate picnic?
Well, he should be on his way to New York by this Sunday.
Yeah.
What about the other cabinet ministers?
At this point in time, we are not involving the politicians at this point, because I think this is a gathering of civil society to show that the people of Malaysia wants and requires a better climate future.
So where is it going to be held and how is it going to be conducted?
All right. It will be held, as we said, 21st of this September, this Sunday, 8 o'clock in the morning. It's just located beside Stadium Merdeka. Not inside Stadium Merdeka, beside the open square. So how is it going to be conducted? We are sort of having a knowledge sharing, or I would say on an idea presentation, and more oriented on actions. What about the youth perspective? What kind of green activism? What kind of climate-friendly Malaysia conversation will we be having? So basically, the participants will come together. We will just sit down on the open square or under the tree, and just write about what is our dream, climate-friendly Malaysia. And we will be having Kimli, which is quite a climate activist as well. She will be sharing her point of view as well on what she learned from New York. We'll be having Jeffrey as well from Kuala Lumpur Bicycle Map to share his point of view as well from the sustainable
What she learned from
transportation.
New York, so she attended any of the climate change events in New York or what?
Yeah, there is a pre-event workshop among the different youths across the world as well. So she went there to learn on all these policies, making more of the activism part on how does activism plays a role in this upcoming climate summit. So from there she will come back and she's back and she will share on what's really going on in terms of activism in New York. Yeah.
And you are going to organize it next to the Merdeka Stadium. What's the story behind it? Is there any story of why you put it there? I mean, you make the event there?
No, there's no really specific story. We feel that it's a very relaxed, comfortable environment. Yeah.
And most importantly, we chose that site as well. It is close to public transport, and it's in the middle of the city, and it also showcased the last patch of greenery and open space that we have in Kuala Lumpur.
And the area around Merdeka Square.
Stadium.
Stadium Merdeka.
Yeah.
It used to be a park, isn't it?
The whole complex, including the two stadiums, are part of the Taman Merdeka. Taman Merdeka, where there are open fields and playgrounds and gazebos and restaurants that people can go in and out throughout the day. Yeah.
Until when?
The last we heard of the existence of park was the late 1980s, early 1990s, where they were slated for development before the 1998 Commonwealth Games, and the whole place was being shut down and closed as it is now remain a big hole now.
Now remain a big hole, and it's not. Is it being developed into something else?
Well, there are plans. There are plans now to build a mega story of
118 stories.
Is it the Warisan building?
Yes, Menara Warisan.
Nara Warisan.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's going ahead.
Just to divert the discussion today, let's go back to both of your background. You are one of the founder for the Power Shift Malaysia.
Yep.
And you attended this global Power Shift?
Well, yes. Power Shift Malaysia is actually a training for youth in taking activism on climate change wherever you are. So what we do in Power Shift Malaysia is we train you on how to plan your campaigns, how to communicate to the media, how to do digital campaigning, and how to even engage in policy making. So it is a whole wide spectrum and how to be more effective in your campaign, whatever campaign that you're running. So this is gonna happen this year. As it's gonna be an annual event. This year is gonna happen in 16 and 19th of October in Penang. So registration is still open. Do please find out about it.
And for the global Power Shift, did you get some of your inspiration from Al Gore?
Well, Al Gore. Okay. Well.
I mean, he has been
well,
the one propelling the discussion on climate
well,
change.
as we are speaking right now, Al Gore's Climate Reality Project is having this 24 hours of live streaming on the internet. So if you are hearing this and you want to find out more, try to search for Climate Reality 24. So Al Gore's Climate Reality is one of the proponent of doing a good thing for climate change and then trying to change the story. There are a lot of other civil societies out there. Friends like Greenpeace, WWF, Friends of Earth, 350. I can go on and on. CJA, Climate Justice Alliance. There's so many people out there trying to, which they have engaged and seen the frontliners of climate victims, I would say. And the only way to do something about it is try to change the story and trying to change the policy.
Majority of the climate change discussion
Yep.
are always Western-centered in terms of its story and its narration. What about in terms of East Asia and also Southeast Asia? Of course, we have your organization and both of your movement. But what about Southeast Asia, which is like the countries that usually would be the suspect when it comes to environmental issues? Are there any notable climate change mover or environmentalists that are really campaigning on this?
Plenty. There are every front line of victims of this climate change it's struggling to find their voice out and also to get ourselves organized. Our friends from Philippines, they were first hit with Typhoon Ondoy, followed by the next year Typhoon Haiyan,
Every year they have typhoon, isn't it?
and every year is the record biggest typhoon every year. So these are the trends that we are seeing on all this climate change going to happen. There are local communities, local networks, local groups. They are standing up and try to raise a voice to who? To the local governments, to the international communities. That if you talk about who caused all this big typhoon, who caused all this climate change and this global warming, our friends from Vanuatu, our friends from the small island nation states across the Pacific, they have not a single car on their island. But they are the frontliners of sea level water rise. They are the frontliners of their homes being washed away by the waves that is ever encroaching. So how? But one of the issues that we face is the language. Many of the things that we read is like available on the internet and all is all in English, very much English based. That's why naturally we see a lot of sinking polar bears, melting ice caps.
But there's no
tar
ice in
sands.
Southeast Asia.
There's no ice in Southeast Asia.
And we face a totally different kind of reality when it comes to climate change.
But it is reality. The reality is there will be more droughts happening throughout the world. There will be more super typhoons happening around the world. There will be also more intense flooding all around the world. 2 weeks ago, and it's still happening now, parts of Pakistan and northern India is still underwater. Pakistan, Bangkok, the delta of Shanghai are prone. They are ever sinking cities because they are built on a natural delta where they're built on the foundation of very loose soil. And when all this increase of rainfall happening on the area, they will continue to sink.
I think I just add on to that. I think we have been, our media, we have been hearing much about climate change, global warming effects throughout the world. But very few Malaysians really try to understand the bigger picture. Very few trying to really understand what kind of impact this Malaysian have. A lot of us we don't understand the relevance of what's happening on the other side. That's why as we said again, not in my backyard attitude. But the fact is that climate change has been happening quite for a while, and Malaysia we have a lot of effects. We know that we have a long dry spell. We had 40 days without rain in Subanjaya.
And the impending El Nino, that the government said that it will be happening quite soon. I'm not sure when.
Well, we're actually at the end of a La Nina cycle. So the El Nino cycle will come up very soon. Yes. So it will. Even without the El Nino cycle, we are already experiencing this dry spell. Just imagine when the real peak of this El Nino cycle slams us.
Really hard time.
Not just Selangor government, but throughout the west coast of Peninsular Malaysia will suffer as well. Up from our Perak and Kedah, all until down to Johor. This is because of the shift of the wind and the rainfall that's gonna come in.
Let's focus on what you do, because you are a green building consultant. I'm not sure what does it mean, Gene-Harn.
Yep.
But I bet you advise people on how to make sure they make more leverage and efficiency in terms of make sure that it's as green as possible and as environmental friendly as possible.
Yes. So basically, my day-to-day job will be as a consultant. I'm advising developers, architects, engineers on how to design a green building, energy efficient buildings. In Malaysia, we have various green building rating tools.
We do?
Yeah, we
based
have.
on international standard or Malaysian ones?
We have both international standard as well as local developed standards. International standards will be from the US, LEED. From Singapore, you have Green Mark. From Malaysia, and we have a green building index. So
what are one of the highlighted features from development?
What kind of highlights?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to environmental-friendly development, to introduce or recommend to architecture or.
Yeah, basically the bigger picture again of all these sustainable architecture or green buildings again, as relate to what we have been talking about this morning, is again to mitigate climate change. More energy efficient buildings, lesser pollution, lesser carbon dioxide release. So we design office that can be as efficient as just using 30% of energy compared to conventional buildings. By that fact is that I would say the barrier no longer is about technology. It's more about developers their willingness to do something different. And I would say that.
And a lot of your advice is it's not so much on. It's actually more cost cutting than the conventional way of building buildings.
Yes, I mean that's the major message we're trying to get across. It's very expensive not to go green in terms of building. And a lot of us, especially in Malaysia, I find that in Asian context, a lot of developers again they are very short-term profit minded. They don't see the payback savings, everything. So for us,
they want faster results.
Yeah, they want faster result. We can easily tell them. I mean, for a green building, returns of investment rates will be 3 years, and they are like, oh, but we can't wait for 3 years, So yeah, it's quite.
So that's when you give the advice to them and emphasis on how important it is.
Yeah, but again, not many developers will be doing this for the sake of going green. It's because of compliance to regulation as well. MPPJ, DBKL, it's a local authority thing that they need to comply to this green building rating system, rating target in order to get their building plan submission.
What about in terms of economic gains by reducing their costs? Is that also one of the major reasons why they are doing this?
Yes. Again, it depends from projects. So some building owners, they engage us because they know that there's a long-term savings in that. But again, part of the built environment scene in Malaysia, again, a lot of office is being built and sell. So when you build and sell, I build it and I sell it to others. The long-term profit doesn't come to my side. So for them, it's like, okay, going green is merely a compliance. Going green is just a corporate image. So we are still trying to, a lot of us in the consultancy line, trying to build that kind of message across. Going green is cheaper actually.
Why it is cheaper? Like, can you share a few of your advice that you give to architecture and companies in order for them to sort of expand the capability of the building without using too much energy?
All right. So, for example, for a typical building office, if you look around a lot of office buildings in Malaysia, you see that there's this sort of trend heading towards glass, glazing, full of glazing buildings, and a lot of oversized chiller. We call it oversized aircon in this. For example, you enter a lot of local universities, you find it's always very cold, 16, 17 degrees. We always try.
We love our aircons, isn't it?
Yeah, and then we would just wear the suit and then just say, oh, it's so cold, and here. So basically, the standard, we have oversized. A lot of our engineers love to oversize their aircon system.
But why is that so? What's the benefit?
It's for their safety.
For the convenience.
It's for their safety that they have delivered what they promised. But because the energy side, they don't pay for the build eventually. So for us, we try to we advise. We use building simulations. We advise on how to design aircon to supply temperature at 24 degrees. This is around 22 or 23 degrees right now. So, I mean, that aspect is about saving energy. The main point, again, is not to use excessively. A lot of us, we just like to enter the office, switch on conveniently with all our fingers, all the lights switch on. Why are we using artificial light when we are in tropical climate, when we get abundance of daylight? In Europe, it's like you don't get this daylight every day, but here we get it every day. A lot of these questions we need to answer from a end user point of view. Why do we need this?
Do you also advise them to utilize more renewable energy like solar panels and all that?
Yeah, I mean that's part of it. But what we really want to advocate first is to use what is necessary, only sufficiently, so which is energy conservation.
But you still advise them to use aircon, even though aircon might release chemical compound CFC that will
there are safe CFCs nowadays, which is below the global warming potential values and all. So I would say rather the larger concern is energy usage. Buildings itself consume around 40% of the total energy use of the nation. So there's a lot of things we can do from there.
We will take a short break. When we return, more discussion on this particular topic on climate change.
ASEAN Breakfast Call Dialogue, widening your horizons.
Hey, this is Arlene.
This is Grace.
We had a very intense discussion off air. And now we are continuing our discussion with Adrian and also Gene-Harn. Earlier on, we discussed a lot about the climate change and what is happening in Malaysia right now, as well as a bit here and there on the climate picnic and climate march. But let's go deeper into the climate march. Why suddenly the U.S. government, President Barack Obama, is so into this and is considered the largest climate march in the history? And in the past, we always talk about peace, talk about human rights, but now we are talking about the environmental rights.
Yeah, what has exactly initiated this whole movement in the US?
Well, it has nothing to do with President Barack Obama. This is truly civil society initiated and led by civil society. So what's happening in UN is that on the 24th of September, the UN is convening a General Assembly, as they do every year. So, Secretary General of UN, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, a day earlier, he scheduled a UN Climate Summit in New York in conjunction with the General Assembly. So he's bringing together 100 head of states, along with CEOs of private entities, city mayors, civil societies.
CEO of private entities?
Yes.
Who they are? Can you name some of them?
The list has not have yet to come out, but what Mr. Ban Ki-moon is trying to work on is that you need everybody. You need the private sector, you need the public sector, you need the civil society to drive this change. Why he felt this is so important? Because he has participated in a few UNFCCC Framework of Climate Change Convention meetings, and there seems to be not going anywhere. Besides UNFCCC, we also have USCSD, which is the Council of Sustainable Development, which is also not going anywhere. So they are very much intertwined with the politics, the intergovernmental, internations policies and relationships, which is not really doing much good on the negotiation of climate change. So Mr. Ban Ki-moon, on his personal capacity, trying to convene an emergency and urgent meeting this 23rd of September. So the civil society also supports Mr. Ban Ki-moon's pledge, which is, okay, you are convening, we will also convene. What we convene on the street, which is what people power is all about. This comes back to the stories in the 1960s and 1960s, where the post-World War II, where the people again gather together on the streets.
The Vietnam War during that time.
No, it's against the nuclear arm proliferation. Because of World War II, where the nuclear arms were dropped and were used, and there was a big fear that there were more development on nuclear arms around the world. So people again in tons and thousands of people go to the streets and supported and pressured the UN meeting at that time. Similar situation now. The world is having a crisis. We are still grappling how to solve this climate crisis. So now we have this very honest, very progressive, very good initiative by UN GenSec, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, to convene the head of states without any policy background, without any political baggage, to come to a good climate policy.
What this march would symbolize in terms of the change in terms of the change when it comes to not just governmental level, but when it comes to the awareness of the younger generation?
Well, the last we spoke, this morning that we checked, there are already more than 2,000 events planned worldwide in 150 countries. We are looking at about close to 50 to 90,000 people will be joined in the streets of New York this Sunday morning. So this only shows us one thing, that the people are ready. The civil society, the people are taking to the streets and talking to the government and pressuring the government to do something about it. We're not talking about awareness anymore. Now we are talking about climate action. Climate action now. Because we have seen too many climate victims from Philippines to Indonesia to the Pakistans, even up to the US of A, where floods are happening on an annual basis, I would say. So this is not a coincidence.
And the end goal for this climate march is somehow to acknowledge the importance of the Kyoto Protocol, isn't it?
Well, this is the climate march is to tell the people in power, the administrations, the politicians, that your time is running out. We are giving you this last chance to do something right. Else we might want to take an alternative method. What happened was Kyoto Protocol, as we all know, that is the only legal binding climate agreement that we have worldwide, right, in this point in time.
But the US and Canada is not part of this.
Well, they were part of the first commitment period, where, however, United Nations, USA didn't ratify what they have signed on earlier. The first commitment period started in 2005 and it's supposed to end in 2012. So that is why a couple of years back, COP15 in 2009, it was so urgent to come out with a second commitment period, which is post 2012. So what happened in 2000 in COP19 in Warsaw, Poland, that they agreed that in COP21 in Paris, we're gonna discuss what's gonna happen post 2015 onwards for the second commitment period. Kyoto Protocol is not dying; it's just an evolving agreement. After the first commitment period, there's a second commitment period, then there's a third commitment period. But what is lacking now is that governments are not talking about, not pledging enough for the second commitment period. So this climate summit, it's Ban Ki-moon's initiative to tell everybody, hey, let's work together, let's sit down and talk very frankly, very honestly, and we have this problem, we need to solve it. So this is in progress. This is the beginning of a year-long negotiations up until COP21 in Paris.
So I mentioned about the US, but what about the emerging superpower China? Have they pledged themselves in terms of having a carbon cap?
China is now the biggest solar panel producer. They are also the largest solar panel user in the world. They are also developing renewable energy in a fast pace, from solar, wind, water, you name it, because they're energy hungry. They still want to grow GDP.
But they are also the
7-8%.
biggest consumer of coal.
They are, but they are not as big per GDP. You know, if you look at per GDP per capita, sorry. If you look at the per capita measurements, they are on par with Malaysia. Malaysia has, although we have only 30 million today, our emissions per capita is quite high.
In terms of coal.
In terms of carbon emissions.
Carbon emissions.
Of course, people, our friends from the US of A, their emissions per capita is off the chart. Yeah. so they used to use this argument of putting China and to some extent India as a bad apple in this discussion of climate change. But in the last 5 years, China has overtook everybody in adaptation of in implementation renewable energy. And also China, as you know, that has one of the largest network of trains, public transport. There's not a single intercity trains in USA, you know. So if you look,
you're right on that. I mean, I remember taking a train all the way up to the northern, from the southern part of China, just by train without even taking the airplane.
Exactly.
And it is very convenient.
And convenient, efficient, fast, and on time as well. So these are all the major technological and also climate-friendly technologies that have been adopted in China itself, and has taken leadership on a sense. So this puts lots of pressure to our friends in the EU and our friends in the United States.
What about Malaysia? Let's focus on Malaysia's role. I mean, we are a developing country. We have a lot of natural resources. Are we heading towards the right direction when it comes to the climate change discussion and also the pledging to have a more carbon cap initiative?
I think Malaysia having natural resources like fossil fuel, like gas and petroleum, is actually a curse that we do not really invest into renewable energy or in energy efficiency as much, because with the mindset that we still have some petroleum. But data are showing us that by 2021, 2022, the oil rigs will dry up and reality will hit us very, very bad.
But Najib has signed into have made a pledge, isn't it?
Yeah, in COP15, 2009 Copenhagen Climate Summit, our dear Prime Minister Najib Razak has shown great leadership in pledging that the country will cut our carbon emission by 40% intensity per GDP. What it simply translates is that to earn an extra dollar in the GDP, we are using only 60% of the energy or the resources required. Means it's 40% per GDP. Yeah. So that is an amazing leadership shown, and rightly so. It has, after the 2009, when he came back, the administration, the ministries has supported and took up the challenge. We have a green tech financing scheme. We have introduced our Renewable Energy Act, which have give birth to a very advanced feed-in tariffs, which spur growth, the growth of the solar panel adoption in Malaysia. Not just solar panel, there also a high take-in rate for the biomass and also other small holders of renewable energy generation. They have shown now they are pushing for energy efficiency ratings of our energy appliances at home. So throughout, and on top of that, the administration of the government has continued to pledge that we're going to keep at least 50% of our forest cover in the country. I think if you do the sum up game, on the policy side, as the administration of the government of Malaysia, we are doing a lot more than our neighboring countries, and it's very, very progressive in our policy. But what we see on the ground is left to be desired.
So the future is definitely heading towards the positive side. But Gene-Harn, you are the younger generation. Do you think there is a positive future prospect for the younger generation to take over the discussion on climate change?
For younger generation to take over the conversation on climate change, from my point of view, there's much more that could be done. Simply reason again, as we said, there's a 40% reduction per GDP. But if we chart out the graph with the GDP, we still have an increase of absolute carbon emission. The issue is that time is running out. Various studies have been saying that, concluding that we only have 20-30 years more of this allowance for us to have this carbon emission to go on. And from my point of view, there's a few more things that can be really pushed forward in terms of Malaysia scene. I mean, I've been involved in the on the feedback of this national energy efficiency action plan.
A Malaysian thing.
Yeah, it's a Malaysian thing. We have been discussing this over the past 4 or 5 years. For me, it's a very noble thing. It's a very good thing, but a lot of things are still on the paper. It's yet to be implemented. This energy efficiency action plan at first is being said that by 2030 we can reduce 12% of energy usage as per business as usual. But now there is a revised version of that. That's not realistic. We will reduce it to 5%. So after 4 or 5 years, we are still in the discussion of, in terms of the energy efficiencies scenario that we still need to discuss about this and all. So as much as my colleague Adrian says that we have a lot of things in place in the government side, and if you read our ETP, GDP, everything seems to be very impressive. But from a youth point of view, everything is merely
on paper.
It's a lot of things that could be done way much better. Which about sustainable transportation and also energy efficiency. We have much more conversation talking about national automobile policy rather than sustainable transportation. These kind of things.
Like any other Malaysian thing, we always are good on papers, but bad on execution. Before we end the show, in conjunction with Malaysia Day, could you share what is your ideal Malaysia?
What is my ideal Malaysia in conjunction with Malaysia Day? I was put it in a way that I'm a very pessimistic person, but I always have this hope because a lot of us in activists in Malaysia, we try to do our best for this country that we love. What is our hope would be really just to the very simple principle, just do the right thing. There are so many issues that we are facing right now. As what Adrian has shared earlier on, we see that there are more activism coming up. Last weekend, we have the group of indigenous people gathering in front of KLCC, objecting against the Bakun Dam and all the other dams related. We have the incinerators, Kepung Incinerator activist group doing their march as well, Linas as well. But the point is, again, we see more and more activism coming up. My hope again ultimately is that Malaysians, I don't point at politicians, but I point at everyone doing the right things. A lot of us are very good at keyboard warrior. I mean, we can post anything about Facebook, but a few of us only really will step out to the streets and to voice out our opinion. That's the whole thing about this climate panic. We always advocate PPM, People Power Movement. A lot of us, we have underestimated what one person could do. And I got the same question, what can you do? But I believe that throughout my activism lifetime, I've influenced 10 other people, and I believe they will influence another 100 people. So this climate panic, again, as we said, is a people power movement. And the same goes to this whole big climate march in New York, and as well as Jakarta, and all around the thousands of events around the world. That's why we want people to come and join the conversation rather than just staying at home, tweeting or Facebooking. What do I feel about this? It's very different when you're on the front lines, or perhaps at the possibility of risk of getting caught by various reason. But by this, only 1% can really feel what is it. What are the extents of effects we are facing today? What kind of problems that we are really talking about. So we need more activism.
A very long wish for a very long wish list for Malaysia.
Very enthusiastic.
People power movement. I would say Malaysians, we need more of that in Malaysia rather than just hoping for voting the ballot and all. Because a lot of us, which I get very agitated when people say democracy is gone. The post May election. I felt that democracy is only gone when you don't practice your citizenship. How many of us participate in local plans? How many of us participate in local issues? How many of us even know our MPs, our duns? All these things that there's a citizenship rights for us to do, we don't voice it out. And for people power movement, as we said again, climate change is only one of the many issues we are facing today. we have this human rights issue or any issues around, so many issues in this world, we need people's participation.
So what I hear from him is basically ignorance is the worst thing that people can do. Change your
Yeah.
mindset and get yourself in the real field and then put in the action.
Yeah.
Just like the Koreans do,
Yeah.
doing all the marches. What about you, Adrian? Very brief, huh? You already occupy your time when it comes to his ideal Malaysia.
Well, Malaysia to me is a growing teenager. It's very restless. It's finding its path. And my hope is for Malaysians to not to be comfortable, pinch yourself every day, and get active. Be participative, not to accept the standard norm, and try to bring the country to a more better place.
Very sweet and short. Okay, that's all from today. This is Arlene.
And then that was Grace.